Hey YouTube, this is Drizzle. I want to do a little video here. I've got my second GTX 1080 Ti installed, and so you can see I've got GPU-Z open up here, and it shows it's enabled with the high bandwidth bridges installed, and I've enabled dynamic super resolution so I can play up to 6880 by 2880 to really push these cards and see how they do. I've already done some tests earlier, that's why I wanted to do this video, just to kind of show you guys the sort of crazy shit that these cards can do in SLI. At 3440 by 1440, what I'm going to do is a demonstration of The Witcher 3 using the DSR to, again, show off like what they can do at stupid high resolutions. But even at this resolution, 3440 by 1440, Witcher 3 was running between 140 and 160 frames a second. That's with maximum settings, and actually I'll show you. Sorry about the noise, hold on. I'm using a push to talk button, so sometimes like when I click certain things it makes noises. Alright, I don't know why it's still making that noise every time I hit the frickin' push to talk button. I probably need to find a different button to use. But suffice to say, you can see I was using some overriding and enhancing settings to actually make the game look even better than the in-game settings can make it look, like enhanced anti-aliasing and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the game, and this will be The Witcher 3 at whatever the hell resolution you consider this. It's about 7K, like between 6 and 7K.
I see you gather before me. Hungry, terrified.
Alright, so you can see I've got some of the settings turned down a little bit, like the Hairworks preset, because that helps, and I can't really tell the difference in the game. It's one of those settings that have always ripped on your frame rate in this game and really don't do much to improve the appearance of the game. And I dropped like this is like draw distance basically for foliage down to high from ultra. I don't know what just happened. I don't know why it did that. DSR can be a little bit weird sometimes. So I turned sharpening down to low from high, and I shut off anti-aliasing within the game, but I guess I can turn that back on. Let's see what happens. I'm not sure how badly shadow play may affect my frame rate in this. Alright, there you go. Totally playable frame rate. I don't know if you can see the upper left hand corner. There should be an overlay both from EVGA Precision, and then Shadowplay has a frame rate overlay as well. But you can see it's hanging around 50 frames a second. It's using 7.3 gigabytes of video memory, which is no problem as we've got about another 4. And my card's running about 72 degrees with the clocks hanging around the low 1800 megahertz range. So it'll drop, down to the low 40s periodically and back up again into the 50s range, pretty much is where it hangs out at. But this is, like I say, like 7K resolution, and not a bad frame rate.
Faster.
This is one of my favorite games of all time. I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. Basically, I'm at the point where I need manufacturers to put out. They're supposed to have some DisplayPort 1.4 monitors coming out later this year, which would be, I think it's Asus and Acer are both going to have a 4K. It's supposed to be high dynamic range, G-Sync, quantum dot, and like I say, I think they're 27 inches. I'm not sure if they're going to be IPS or VA panels. I hope they're VA, but I think they might be IPS, in which case the color quality won't be quite as good as what I'm playing on right now. My Samsung CF791 is a VA panel, and the color quality of this thing is so good I really don't want to go back to IPS, but I'd have to see one in person. Maybe they're calibrated good enough that maybe you can't tell the difference, or maybe it's so marginal that the other features. But they're going to be like $1,200, so I don't know when I'll get one. If I can sell this monitor at that time and then buy one, then it won't cost me that much to upgrade. But you can see, like I say, the frame rate I'm getting at 3440 by 1440 is like 160 frames a second in this game. So in 4K, I mean, I'm well beyond 4K right now, and I'm still getting 50. And so you got to figure out regular 4K. I get about 100 frames a second. I tested it earlier. That's why my resolution wasn't maxed out when I loaded up the game, because I was trying it closer to 4K resolution, and I was getting, like I said, a good 100 plus frames a second. So I'm going to need monitor, some kind of a panel that can run 4K and at least 100, if not higher, frames per second to start taking advantage of these 1080 Ti's and SLI. They're just nuts. I did a 3D Mark Fire Strike benchmark, about 30,000 points in that. I could definitely overclock the cards further, I'm sure. And I think my CPU might be holding me back there a little bit now. But that ran very well. Other games like GTA 5 with everything on max is like 120 frames a second. Other games. The Forest I played, but it was kind of all over the place. It was as low as 80, but as high as like 180. Like it was flailing around all over the place. That game is still an alpha, so SLI is probably not as good a performance as as it will eventually be.
Go, go. Slow now. Whoa.
I'm going to try to dial the resolution back down to the native resolution of the panels just so you can see what the frame rates are. They're nuts. can see it's hitting at 161 right now. It's not totally maxed out settings. Let me go crank that back up real quick. I mean, it's sitting at like a low of 120-ish, you can see there. It kind of, you know, like anti-aliasing and so forth. This is a lot to do with the NVIDIA Hairworks being cranked up. With that turned down, like it'll sit higher at, you know, 140s range, 150s range. It kind of depends on the environment. There's a, and with the draw distance up, out here, I mean, you like have miles and miles to see with the mountains in the background, and that affects the frame rate a bit too. And again, remember I've got the effects turned up even higher in the driver. Like with those shut off, I'd be getting a higher frame rate. Now I'm trying to do a Skyrim test, and for some reason, ever since I got I can't get it to load now. Like with EMB installed, the game will not load; it just crashes. And so I don't know if that's because I got the second card, or if it's a driver thing. Because NVIDIA just put out a new driver here the other day, and suddenly the game stopped working. I did test Fallout 4 with ENB and max settings, everything cranked up in that game. And that sits at like 160, 180 frames per second. With ENB shut off, it's like 240. And of course the other thing you have to remember is that shadow play being enabled actually cuts your frame rate by maybe 5%, give or take. It has to utilize some of your CUDA cores for the recording process, so you're going to get a little bit lower frame rate than you would if you had it shut off. Well, folks, I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you enjoyed this sort of content. If there's any games that anybody wants to see specifically benchmarked, I did do the benchmark in Shadow of Mordor with everything maxed out, 190 frames a second on average. Everything maxed out. That's the in-game benchmark. That used to thrash video cards, and I mean, granted, this is 2 cards, not one I'm playing on, but just like I say, that game was a pretty good indicator of your system performance, and it just destroyed that particular benchmark. So if anybody has any suggestions or games they'd like to see benchmarked, if I have it, I'll gladly do it. If it's not too expensive, I may pick it up or see if I can get a copy, you know, for cheap and benchmark it for you, or at least, you know, get some idea of how well it runs. But appreciate everybody watching. This has been Drizzle, and if you like my content, please click the subscribe button. Thanks and have a great one. Bye.